an idea because I'm writing a lot with hardware. So what I did this time, I tried to force myself, and I basically took my laptop and my Keystep Pro, and I went in the kitchen instead, and just to avoid like just wanting to mess around with too much stuff, and also because we're sponsored by Arturia on this one, I wanted to start a track with their synths. I think they're really good. I just because I have a lot of the real stuff, I just thought I would. It would force me to use some of their stuff. So the idea for this track was to start with Arturia plugins and with some sample from my sample pack from Loop Masters that's gonna come out in, don't know if it's in January or February now. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. And basically the track just kind of like influenced by some sort of like early to mid 90s dream Italo house. So I'll just play a little bit more and I'll start mixing after. All right, so yeah, let's dive a little bit into it. So technically, what I would do, let's say I do some mix for people. I have a few clients, um, and so I will try to mix this project like well, that's going to be hard. Like it's not mine, but anyways. So basically, one way to do it would be to start with the drums. So let's mute that, and I'm gonna go through different elements in the track and explain a little bit. So right now, I wanna sort of concentrate on the foundation of the track, which is the drums and the bass. So here is, I'm gonna put this here as well at the top. So right now things are, I'm gonna put it in an area of the track where there's a lot of things. So let's listen to just the bass. So what I'm trying to do now is while I'm listening to these things, trying to analyze, make like mental notes of what needs to be corrected, what needs to be, have priority, what needs to be enhanced. So right now, I mean, it's all sounding, very good. I mean, sorry, sounding good. Uh, but yeah, basically we wanna take this to the next level, and I'll show you like how I would do that. So let's go and start with the drums. So I've mentioned. Sorry. Oh, you can hear what I'm saying when the music is playing. Is that correct? Well, just let me know. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So. Okay. Sorry about that. So I'll just have to stop the music. I thought we were okay with it in the sound check, but for some reason it's not working well. Okay, so as I said, so I'm, I want to. I was listening to the beats and the bass and wanted to know like what, sort of taking mental notes about what I want to do to it. Um, One thing I mentioned before, but for the new people, I'll still say it, is about the importance of gain staging, which is something that I already did here. So for those who don't know about gain staging, you can definitely look it up, but more or less what we are looking for is, I'm sure you've had the unfortunate incident of overloading your master, your master here, like the stereo out a lot. And basically what we're trying to do is to have a healthy mix, without clipping, and to for everything to be balanced well. And the technique comes from originally on mixing desk, analog mixing desk, where the technique would be that you take your sound. Let's say it's the kick, it's on channel 1, and you go and you adjust the gain on it, so you would hit 0. But 0 analog and digital world, it's around -18. There's a lot of things on it. I encourage you guys to read a little bit about it, because I couldn't spend like a whole class on it, but almost. But I don't want. I think it can be a little bit boring. But I just wanted to explain you why I'm doing this. So right now I've done it to all all single instrument already. So as you can see here. So you see the kick here is like hitting, at around -18. It's not an exact science. And another reason also why we do that is because, what was I going to say? Oh yes, of course. Once you start adding plugins, anyways, your levels are going to go higher, and that's why you also want to keep things lower. And some of the plugins, a lot of the plugins from the like from UAD, for example, they're supposed to recreate like vintage compressors and so on. And basically these are supposed to accept or perform better at that level. So I already did that. I know a lot of you guys work in Ableton. So I use mostly Logic, sometimes Ableton, but so one way to do it, you can put a gain plugin, in utility. For example, you see I have one here, but I'm not going to use that in this case. What I already did it is that I'm using well, the same thing you can do in Ableton. Is like you can you have a clip gain on the side, so you can decide how to to get it to read to about -18. So okay, so now let's start mixing a little bit. So I'm hearing things. Let's try with the kick drum already, which I find that it can be a little bit weak. And what I'm gonna do, because I know that a lot of people are having this issue, that I'm gonna try to mix the kick with the bass at the same time. So I'm gonna do some things and I'm gonna explain, because you can't hear me through the music. So I'll just go ahead and start working and explain to you after what I'm doing. So quickly about visual aids. You know, as you see, I'm just putting in a an analyzer. I have an analog one, and this is the one that comes with Logic. It's a multimeter. I would say these are very nice to have and to use, but ultimately we want to, you know, definitely listen with our well, listen with our ears, obviously, but you know, like these can help, especially in case, you know, when you have a bad room or something like that. They can help you see some problems, or you know, identify some problems. But the one thing that I want to avoid is trying to tell people that, you know, wow, you gotta have things a certain way on the analyzer, where, like, you know, every track is different, and also your sound will be different than mine and then, you know, someone else. So you're so you basically are trying to just use that as, you know, a little bit of a helper, but not like ultimately, you know, you use your own, you know, your own judgment. So what I'm trying to do here with the kick drum is that I sort of want to get that lower, like around, like, you know, 40, 45 hertz, you know, frequency. It's kind of like a little bit like rounder. So I'm using the Waves R bass for that, Renaissance bass, which basically is an enhancer. It's like it's not like an EQ, but it just adds like a layer of harmonics. So I'm just gonna keep working on this a little bit, and then I'll come back. So I hope if you guys, you know, are on laptop speakers, that's not, you won't hear anything. So if you have headphones, and preferably your best pair of headphones, that would be better to hear this. So if you've taken the class before, so you know that I'm a big fan of transient designers, sometimes more than compressors. In this case, this is a new product from Ergsound. They do the Soothe plugin, which I'm going to talk about in a bit, especially for removing those like high frequencies. Um, Basically, this is a strange strange beast, because basically you can sort of play with it's kind of like a multi-band transient designer almost. So in this case, I'm sort of like adding attack to, you know, around 100, where like I want to get a little bit more of that kick, and then I'm reducing the attack in the mid range, where I felt that it was a little clicky. So this is how it sounds like now. And you can always play with, you know, the order of your plugins as well sometimes, to see how it reacts differently. So in this case, I like to have the R bass before, because then the spiff is taking that already enhanced signal, and it and then enhance it further. Also, one thing that I like to do is usually is put an EQ first and correct any issues before I would enhance things. So because for example, I hear that sort of clickiness. Well, I can fix it before I start enhancing it. So let's see here. Let's see without anything. So what I'm doing here is to find the problematic frequency. That's a very known technique of, well, you can use, like visual aids, like we said, like with the meters, or you can use multiband compression and find where it hits and then, compress just that bit. But this is sort of the old way of doing it, is that you exaggerate the frequency, and then when you hear that resonant peak, then you dip it. So you hear that really nasty little thing. So I'm just gonna remove this before. Okay, now I think I have a quite of a healthy kind of bass drum. I'm gonna put a little bit of compression on it. I'm gonna use the DBX, which is one of my favorites, Go-To, by UAD, but you can find the same one with Waves do one as well, and even with the Logic, you have like one of the models in the Logic compressor that does that. So. Okay. And one more thing that I like to do, I know it sounds a little overkill, but one more thing that I like to do as far as getting a little bit of a rounder, not a rounder, but like maybe a bit more punchier kick, is that I'll use the Soundtoys Decapitator as a parallel on the parallel bus instead of putting it here, and I use this preset called the Drum Fattener. So I put it as my default. So whenever I turn it on, it's just there. And let's listen to what it sounds like. Okay, so now we have a bit more volume, but we started here, and now we're all the way over. And we haven't touched the drum bus yet, And so these are some of the things that I would do, not necessarily always, and there's always a matter of taste, and you also don't want to what do you call this? You don't want to overdo it because it's easy also to kill the life of everything. So let's listen to the kick with the bass. So in this case, it's the Moog Matriarch, and let's see how they interact with each other. I'm gonna open up the analyzer. right away I'm not really hearing any sort of problems of clash in the sound, but that's probably due to the fact that I already know the sound that I'm going for. So basically, when I send the MIDI to my matriarch, I will sort of sculpt it right away, and that's why I love analog synths so much. Is that I can really play with the envelope, the filter, and the oscillators to get the sound that I want in my head right away, and somehow like I don't really run into these problems, but we can check some let's see first. Let's just see if we look on the analyzer. Let's see where the different with the kick and the bass hit. So I've got a healthy sort of, like that 45, for the kick, and then with the bass. So as you can see, the bass is a little bit higher in this case. So it's around, like closer to 60. So they sort of work together. The other thing I think that's very important to know when we're dealing with kick and bass relation is that before anything, before you're thinking about which tools do I need to fix my problems, the problems can be fixed as well when you are writing your songs, when you're writing your bass line. So if you have bass notes falling always on the kick, then it's going to be a little tricky, obviously, because they're going to both fight for the same area. So in this case, what do we have here? Let me see. Let's do it again. Well, that's very simple. There's no, it doesn't fall on the kick. So basically, so they don't clash. So they could technically have the same frequency and not really, it wouldn't be any issue. So for example, if I was to put a by the way, I just this is a little something that I did just to roll off some of the highs from the bass. So that was the original sound. I just wanted to give it, to that's something I did, while I was writing the song. So basically, we could go and have the bass there by turning down the cutoff. You can sort of move it a little bit in the frequency range, but in case where we really want to make sure that the bass and the kick, I see, when the two fall at the same time, I'm looking at Jason in the chat. Well, this is basically, here's one thing we can do here when that happens, using a multiband compressor. I mean, there are many ways, but basically you want to try to avoid that. So when you're writing, something that I've said in the class before is that a good arrangement is a good mix. So that's very important to know, because, like, for example, when you look at an orchestra is a perfect mix. And what makes that? Well, because they're already set up perfectly on the stage at the right place, to get the sound, but also that certain instruments don't play at the same time as other instruments. So it's something to keep in mind. But having said that, it will happen, once in a while that, you might have a kick at the same time as the bass. So in this case, what I would personally do, and if you don't know about multiband compressors, I think, have a look a little bit, because this is another area where, like, I wouldn't want to spend like a whole hour on this. Basically, I'm compressing just one part of the signal. So where the highs are going to remain uncompressed, and the low will be compressed. And what I do is, like, because I use a lot of the analog bass, sometimes it can be like almost like overwhelming. So in the bass area, so I try to minimize this by controlling the lower end of the bass. So in this case, so I'm obviously exaggerating it now, but you know, just a little bit subtly will really help. But here, to address your problem, Jason, this is where, like, you know, what you want in this case is the side chain. So we're gonna take the kick and put it in the side chain, and just whenever the kick comes in, it's gonna duck, but only that frequency, which is more interesting than having let's say a compressor on the whole sound, and then every time your kick comes in, then your whole bass disappears. Yeah, I personally don't like that. I don't like to hear compression too much, you know, generally. So let me just sorry, input. So here, oh, sorry. Okay, you gotta go in expert and side chain. So as you see here on the compressor, you guys can see that. So whenever the kick comes in, just that lower frequency goes. So in this case, you know, because, well, personally, I like the kicks to have, you know, enough sub in them, and, you know, enough, yeah, kick, not just like mid kicks, but, you know, like the lower frequency. So that can be when something, yeah, when there's a problem with the frequency. So just doing that. In this case, you know, it wasn't problematic because there are some space in between the notes, but the release of the bass, you know, might overlap. So, you know, could be a nice way to clean things. I mean, I'll probably leave it there to for this, you know. Oh yeah, yeah. It really it helps. It helps. So perfect. Okay. So now, as far as the bass goes, I'm not really hearing any issues with it. Um, in this case, I might try. I know it sounds crazy, and a few years ago you would have told me that, and I said, no, you should never do that. But adding a little bit of reverb on the bass. So let's just try to see if that works in this case. So I'm just gonna put up just a regular, like a Valhalla vintage. All right, and let's see how it sounds like. What it sounds like. Okay, well, that's, you know, that could be definitely dangerous. So we're gonna roll off some of the low on the plugins, because you don't want that extra low. But what I think we can do is that signal that we send into the that bus, we're gonna EQ it as well. So the reverb is not receiving any of the low end of the bass. We just want to give maybe the bass line a little bit of dimension. So for example, in the case where, like, you have a moment like this in the track, there is not now, but, you know, like if you have this, well, it's nice that, you know, it's not fully dry like it would be like here. both are good. I guess it's a matter of taste. So let me EQ out a little bit of that reverb, of the signal coming in the reverb. So now I'll exaggerate it a little bit so you can hear. So as you could tell now, it's like almost none goes into the reverb. So I'm gonna dial it back. And because, you know, like those EQs, you know, you can, in the digital world, you can add as many as you want. Nothing stops you from adding another one after to correct any issue or any more bass, you know. So let's see what it does. What is it? Also, another thing very important when you're dealing with reverbs is I would definitely encourage you guys to play with the pre-delay a lot. What it does basically, again, you know, you can find a lot of things on this online, but the pre-delay will make a difference in when the reverb actually starts, almost like the attack on a compressor. And what it's good for, it's good to put certain sound in different space. So we were talking about, someone was talking about 3D earlier, and this is basically, this is what we're trying to do. Like, and what made like the classic recordings what they were is because there was different placement for different things in the studio, different the microphone placements, the room, and everything. And so we're trying to emulate that, so you don't have like a sort of like really flat 2D digital mix. You can do things like that. And what that pre-delay does as well, it allows your sound to exist before it gets reverb. Because if you put the sound directly in the reverb with no pre-delays, then, you know, you're just hearing that whoa, like that really sort of like long thing. Where in this case, you know, you will hear your sound first dry, and then you will hear it delayed. So in this case, let's try to listen to it a little bit. Let's see how it sounds. And then also, you know, let's say like there's nothing that stops you from, let's say you want to get a little crunch in that reverb, because now it's just very soft. Let's do a little, where's the little saturation? Set this one. Yeah, so this is a free one. I have a short list of free plugins that I'm gonna put in the chat at the end of the session. If I forget, just let me know. But anyway, so this is a free one, so you could add that in here. It's actually the first time I've ever done that, but you know, you gotta, that's it. That's why, you know, when you play with a lot of things, sometimes like ideas come to you, you know, later on. So okay, well, I don't want to spend too much more time on this because I'm happy how those two sound together. So let's go with the rest of the instruments in the drums now. Okay, so This is like a rim shot from my you call this my sample pack, my Loopmaster sample pack. What am I hearing here? Yeah, I'm hearing something a little nasty, and I think that's actually this one right here. This, let me just see if that's what it is. This frequency is a. No, it's not quite that. I just think there's too much still in the bass and low mid. I already put a low cut, but let's see what we can do here. I'm thinking maybe over here as well. There might be something a little dangerous for the ears. Yeah, that's terrible. So let's remove a little bit of that. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but basically when I remove the EQ, you can hear that sort of all this noise in the rim shot that is not necessary, and it's just eating up some space. So like here, like you hear, it's not bass, but it's just not necessary. So it just adds yeah, to the noise. So okay. All right, so in this case, let's go back to my trusty DBX. DBX here. I'm seeing in the chat the question. Yeah, the sessions are recorded, so you'll be able to look at it later. So in this case, when I did the sample pack, you know, there's a little bit of a reverb on it. But let's say that I think now I wish I didn't. So I can just go and use a transient designer. So transient designers are also good for removing reverbs, so or room noise, so by adjusting the sustain. So let's try that. So now it's completely gone, but we want to keep it a little bit more. So I like how that sounds right now. Let's see. So also very important, I'm soloing instruments, but you always have to listen to things in context, because you might like how something sounds on its own, but basically the important thing is not each element, is the whole thing. So all right, so we've got kick and the rim and the bass. Now let's see the hi-hat. So in this case, this hi-hat, there's quite a few hi-hats in there. That's a problem that me and a lot of other people have, is to add more, layers. So in this case, this hi-hat is meant to be to have a bit more of a lo-fi flavor, so sounding like it comes from let's say an old sampler or something like that, or a tape deck, so I'm gonna try to get that sort of vibe as much as I can, because there's a lot of other hi-hats after that are, you know, higher. So this one is just a bit more of a like a body sort of hi-hat. And as you can see, I remove a little bit of 200. I'm not sure if I might put it back, or I don't know, but the 200 250 hertz area is very problematic for me and for a lot of people, basically because this is where like you get that sort of mud, so that can really cloud your mix. So so be mindful of that area. I'm not saying you should cut it. Like, you should never just do things because you need to do them, but always sort of keep that in mind, that, you know, this frequency sometimes can can be a little bit it's a sort of like nasal kind of lower lower nasal frequency, if that makes sense. So all right, so let me just work on this a little bit. And here, just as a side note, not really mixing related, but that can help. When I was talking about arrangement being key to mixing, it's also like how you program your drums. So, for example, in this one, you can hear that the hi-hat, you know, the first hi-hat is louder than the second one. So it's like 1, 3, 5, 7 are higher, and the other ones are slightly lower. And these are all like little details that can really just, I can change something in, you know, in a beat from being like sounding like everyone else or sounding like yourself. So between that, and as you see, like on the side here, I have the delay. This is something I use a lot, kind of shifting things a little bit. Well, in this case, it's only 1 tick. It's like really not much, but moving things around to your liking will make it, you know, sound like you. But only that, but it's, you know, it can also help put things, you know, a little bit out of the way of other things, you know, so they're not everything is like falling at the same place. So all right, so because someone is asking about dealing with the hi-hats, so I'm gonna go now and deal with everything that's hi-hat related, and then I'll move on to the clap. So let's see. So I'm happy with this. In fact, you know, I might reduce the I might make it a little shorter as well. So there's a tiny bit of reverb or release that I wanted to get rid of. So I just use a little sustain. I was playing with the attack as well, because, you know, I like stuff to have quite a bit of attack. I like my transients, but sometimes, again, it's something when you want to get something out of the way, you can reduce the attack on certain sounds, so they will leave room for the other sound that, you know, if, let's say you have a hi-hat that's more that has more attack and more transient, so you'll have more room for that. So okay, by the way, as well, another way to get rid of reverbs as well, and or releases, is the good old, you know, gate. That so let's say like, I just, in this case, I just wanted to mention it, but I don't want to use it, so I'm not going to spend time on this one. So let's go see what the other hi-hat are like. So this was a loop, like a top kind of loop that I got from also from my Loop Master uh, sample pack, and I've been using the step effects, which is something that I completely forgot. It comes with Logic and it's really nice. So I have to give a shout out to Jimster for reminding me about this plugin. He told me about it and I'm like, oh, I forgot. It was in one of the updates. And it's really good because you can automate your cutoff, your gate, your pan. I mean, you can automate a bunch of things like stepwise. And so if you listen to, for example, without it, okay, well that's all right. But then again, you know, it's about like making things sort of interesting and your own. So you can add something like here, like, you know. And what's good as well is that you can mix both signals. So in this case, I like, you know, I quite like it like that. And frequency wise, it's nothing that really bothering me. I can have a look, but really there might be a little something here. Okay, well, that's not gonna make or break anyways. It's just one more. Okay, and we've got some 808 hats. Well, let's listen again with both hi-hats as well. So as you can hear, they're different. They're doing something different, and that's the thing that you sort of want to try to do, because if your sound all sound the same, you all want to occupy the same area in your in your mix, you know, then it's kind of pointless. You're just adding some sort of information that's not necessary. So I think the when you're layering, the one of the ground rule would be to just find what you're missing. So sometimes, let's say like I have, you know, I'm starting the track with this. I think that's actually what I did start with. Well, what happens is that then I'm like, well, you know, it's just kind of lo-fi, but I want this sizzle. Instead of EQing that, I'll go and look for something else. So in this case, I've got this one. So someone's pointing out that step effects used to be the old Camel Audio. Oh, that's Jason. Yes. Yeah, I think I had that plugin, but I don't know. I think it's a little bit more than that, because also the great thing is you can do with the pan is, you know, it's pretty great. So you can really change the sounds, and especially if you're working with loops. So in this case, I don't work with a lot of sample packs, but I wanted to show a little bit more, and I also needed to do something quick. So, and even if I made those those loops, for me it's like always a little cheating, like to just use them as they are. So I needed to change them a bit more. So some high 808 hi-hat. Well, it's the RD8 stuff from Behringer. They make decent products, but they don't have very good ethics. But that's I'm not going to talk about that too much. Anyway, so okay. Well, now I guess this, you know, something a little bit crisp that we can fix. And this is where I'm going to start. I'm going to talk about the here, this great plugin called Soothe. I'm sure you guys have heard about it. It's not a cheap product, I have to say, but what it does, it does it very well, and it helps fix some issues. Basically, it looks for the sort of some of those frequencies that some resonant frequencies that you don't always hear, and then it just kind of, you can eliminate it, and you can reduce it. Okay, so let's just listen to this. So you see here, yeah, the 700, it's like it's a little bit rough. So my idea is that you don't want to do too much, but it really helps. Like, and it's the thing, like when you use the bypass button, that's when you really hear what it's been doing, and that frequency that, sometimes I'm sure it happens. You hear something, a sound in your track, and you're like, there's something wrong with this, and you don't know exactly what is wrong. Well, this is another one of those sort of visual aids that can help you. But again, I don't really recommend to just put like soothe on every track, and so I think it's important to still listen to your own instinct. And in this case, even like to help out soothe, I could even go and duck these frequency before. So I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it really helps because it's like it was really piercing. In this case as well, let's listen to everything that we have so far now. Oops. Okay, I'm happy with how that sounds. I might just put a little sidechain by using the on the 808 hats, just for a little rhythmic element, but just in a tiny bit here with the Kickstart plugin. So let me see here. Just that first hi-hat that comes on the kick, I think, just ducking it helps a little bit as well, and it just adds a little movement. Okay, and now we have the Problematics shaker loop. So let's listen to that. So as you see, I already put a side chain, and the reason why I did this is because I really need. Oh, sorry, I saw a message on my computer said connecting to audio. I hope I didn't drop. So I like that. I like that sort of that rhythmic element. Like, I know I said I don't like to hear compression very much, and sidechain can be very annoying to me personally. But in this case, I think it's a really great way for shaker to just to have that rhythm that that I'm looking for in this case. So to me, that's too busy. No, yeah. And then I cut a lot of the bass, as you can see, because it's really annoying. Otherwise, I listen to this without. So I'm hearing a little almost like saliva kind of, high frequency sound. So let's see if we can also identify it. Okay. So, I mean, so let's listen to what we have in context. So earlier, someone was asking also about what to put in mono and what to put in stereo. So basically, there's no real rules, but I think in dance music, house music, techno, generally you want those things like the things that you want to hit hard to be sort of mono. So your kick, your bass, your snare, this kind of stuff you want right there in the middle. And again, there's no rule. It's just one of the things. And then if you're talking about hi-hats and shakers, then that can be interesting, either to pan one to the left, one to the right, or I have a shaker, with a stereo enhancement. So I use a free plugin. I'll put it in what is it called again? Is it Ozone Imager? I'll put it in the comments at the end. So I use that. So let's just see what it does actually. So that could be a good way. Sometimes putting things in stereo can be a good way to also unclutter your mix. Then again, I guess the best way, like I said, to have a perfect mix is to take these things in consideration and not, put too much stuff. But sometimes, get excited, you add more and more, and then, you kind of stuck with it because the vibe of your track, if you remove something, goes. So in this case, I would maybe use a little bit of panning. We're almost finished with the drums. I have another drum loop. What was I going to say as well about panning? Oh yeah, I saw a post by Kenny Dope from Masters at Work this week on Instagram. It was really interesting. He was showing like an old session that from Masters at Work that they found. He opened it up in Luna, Universal Audio, and basically he was saying to people, you thought I was kidding when I said that I'm using a mono drums back in the days. And then he shows the sessions. You've got like tons of vocals, and then you've got one track, mono track, that's just this SP 1200 drums, straight up like mono, coming out of the machine, not separate, so you can adjust the kick and the EQ on the snare, or put like everything. I guess maybe they were just EQing the bus itself, but just to show that basically some of the best records also have been mono. There's a lot of people who really believe in mono. So, but anyways, all right, let's check out. This is a loop, also from the pack. So what I did here is that I already remove. I'll play it to you like this. So this is the loop. I already cut the bass, so here, and then I used one of the Moog filters. I am not sponsored by Moog or Universal Audio, but I just like their stuff. Although I would like to be sponsored by Moog one day. And in this case, I used a filter to give it character, but also a little bit as an EQ because I want to get rid of the highs because there was other highs. So if you can hear. All right, so okay, we're almost done with the drums now. Now we've got the clap. So let's listen to that. This again from the RD8. It's actually a clap, and there's a little bit of the 808 snare as well. Basically, right now, my first instinct is that I think it's a little kind of dead sounding. So I wanna give it a little bit of torque, a little attack, and a little bit of maybe some sort of high frequency enhancement. So I'm gonna just play with this, and I'll tell you after what I do. Okay, so the idea here again, is fix the problem first before adding anything to it. Because if you have an annoying frequency, you put in the compressor, then it's going to sort of exaggerate that. But then I want to add a little something. I've been liking. There's a few plugins that I've discovered this year. More time in the studio. So one of them is the Gem Dopamine. I'm gonna open a few and we can listen to them real quick. So this one here and this one. Okay. All right. So the Dopamine is it's something that I didn't even know what it was. It's basically trying to emulate or it's emulating the old Dolby sound that, again, I didn't know they were using that in the 80s. But so to get this very airy vocal, so getting some air at the top end, and they recreated that, and it's pretty nice what it does. So let's listen to what it does here. Yeah, I don't mind that. I like that. Let's listen to then the next plugin as a test. It's not really adding. This wouldn't be adding high frequencies, but it emulates the old Akai S900, S950 samplers, which was some of the first ones that I've ever used. So let's listen to what it does a little bit. Oh, in this case, it's definitely more of a bit crusher. I don't know, on this sound you can definitely hear the artifact that's adding. Well, in this case it's not what I'm looking for, so I just wanted to show it. And the other one is this one is supposed to be an emulation of the SP1200 sound, so let's listen to that. Again, yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. I think it's always important to to just explore sometimes, and instead of always using the same tools, and so you get your ears trained to basically to know your tools a little bit more. So okay, well, I'm sort of happy with that. So let's listen. Now we've got basically we've got all the drums. Let's listen to all the drums now. And this is the part where now, like, I'm gonna look for the balance and what I want to hear more. I mean, I'm happy with it, but I'm just gonna sort of look at the different sounds, which one I want to come out a little bit more in the mix, and then I'm gonna treat the drum bus after that. Alright, drum bus. Let's go. So, I had some notes here. What do I usually... never mind. I can't find my notes, but I know what I do. So there's a few things, again, that we can do. So let's do a couple of different options so you guys can hear what it does. So I don't always do that. Sometimes a tape emulation plugin can help round out the high frequency sometimes and give it a little glue. So it can be good on drums. Technically, people love the sound of tape on overdriven tape on drums in general. So let's listen to this. So it's subtle. I'll leave it on because I think it's interesting. To go with what I was saying earlier about fixing things before, I think now when I put the tape plugin, I'm hearing some of the buildup of the high frequencies from all my loops starting to annoy me a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is to put it, like I didn't hear it before I put the tape. The tape sort of seemed to have exaggerated some of it, even if it's supposed to roll off a little bit of high sometimes. So let's put a suit on it and let's try to get rid of some of those frequencies first. When you start adding things on your bus as well, things will start sounding a little bit different. So you can basically go back in your mix and change things, and it's going to change how stuff reacts. So basically, now I'm going to put compressor, like an API. I have the real one for this, but I end up always using these ones. So this is the UAD one. The Waves one is really good too. So let's listen to this a little bit. what I liked mostly about this version, the UAD version, is that you've got a dry wet mix. So this is kind of like, having it in parallel. So, now I'm experimenting a little bit. All right, so basically, okay, so I was saying, the wet dry button is why I like this plugin a little bit more, because you can do things like exaggerate it and just blend the signal. But I'm gonna listen to it and see how I like it more. In this case, I quite like, this bit of a kind of a suction, kind of pumping effect, and it would really annoy me if it was on its own, but I think maybe mixed a little bit, that could be interesting. So. Okay. And so one more thing that I've been liking recently on the drum bus, but I have to say, like, for a long time I never used anything on my drum bus. This is like sort of new. The Sonox Inflator, again, not a cheap plugin, but you can find it on sale sometimes. It's worth checking. I always thought it was some sort of a limiter, but it's an inflator. It really sort of does something to the density of your sound. So let's listen to this a bit. So as I'm adding process, I'm getting this sort of I'm hearing something that was bothering me on the highs, like sort of like a kind of thing, and that's coming. I know that's coming from the rim shot, so I just went to fix it a little bit. So okay, let's listen to that. Okay, so basically, anyways, I just wanted to, it's hard to completely, I don't know if someone knows here how to bypass all plugins in Logic. I don't know if that's possible, but if someone knows, just put it in the chat. Although I'm not seeing the chat now again. I don't know why. Oh, here, okay. So... what was I going to say? Sorry. But anyways, let's just listen to the drum bus without the effects, but so you'll be able to tell a little bit what has changed just from the drum bus. I think maybe it's sounding good. I may have, overdone it a little bit. So these are things that, obviously with more time, and I'm also dealing with my headphones, I'll be able to address certain problems. But, I think for the exercise, it's working. And then and for the bass, I just added a little bit of compression, but like barely, just to give it a little bit of like a little tiny squeeze to make it a little tighter with the rest of the drums. So basically, this is it for today's class as far as um, the technicality. Like I thought I would cover mixing the whole song, but I was like, at least if I get the drums and the keys, sorry, the drums and the bass, this is, I think, we're pretty much there. So tomorrow we can concentrate on the keys. And what I'll do as well, I'm not just going to talk about mixing, but I'll talk about as well, like, how I got, certain things to sound that way. And if there's more time as well tomorrow, I can prepare another a session from a track that I've done and do a little, a little show round of that. So basically now, let's jump into questions basically. Jesus, do you want to? What do you want? Should people unmute each other, or let me just? I'll get rid of the screen sharing. I mean, I can jump back on the session if someone has something a question related to the actual session. I've been keeping an eye on the chat, but sometimes it's a little distracting. So if you had questions on there that I didn't answer, please ask again. And I'm going to put a link on or to the. Going to put a link to the plugins as well that I was mentioning. Yes.
I know you said keep that kick, bass, and snare kind of in the middle, not always, but like as a rule, kind of. But yeah, I didn't see you. You didn't like. Would you ever put the claps a bit to the right and the open hat or something, that lo-fi hat a bit to the left, or?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't mention that though. Yeah, you can definitely do that. I didn't in this case because it doesn't really call for that. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure what is that in relation to your question about the bass.
It, well, no, I know you said to keep those bass and kick and stuff in like pretty center. I was just wondering about
Oh, center. Okay, I thought
yeah,
you were
yes,
talking about frequency. Yeah, the idea is that also like in a mix, you want to have a balance, right? So when someone listens to your music, you don't want them to be tilting one way or another. You want the balance. One of the true masters for that who died recently is Bruce Swedian, which is the guy who mixed all the stuff for almost all the stuff for Quincy and Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. And this guy was a hard panner, like crazy. He was actually one of the first guys to. He was an advocate of stereo before stereo um, was a thing, and basically he was one of the guys who was pushing record labels back then. Because we're talking about, oh my god, I want to say something silly, but like in the 50s or 60s. I gotta look it up. Anyways, the labels, everything was in mono. And so labels in one, it was basically double the price to do things in stereo, and he was really pushing. Bruce Swedian, like Sweden, but with an I before the last E. And where was I going with this? Okay, so he's a big advocate of stereo. He'd be like a hard panner. Okay, but here's the rule there, is that if he puts like sort of a bongo. And if you listen to those albums, they sound amazing. You've got a bongo on one side, and maybe you'll put, a shaker on the other side. Anything that sort of balance. If you put just one thing on one side, it just kind of also distracts you. So we want to, hopefully get that sort of balance and experiment with different things. Like I said, the things that generally the things that you want, to hit hard, kind of in the middle, like same thing if you're, doing vocals, your lead vocal, usually in the middle, it can have some effects, but then when you have backing vocals, that's when you go crazy. You have backing vocals, like sides, like, you stack them and you make, some of them hard pan, some of them a little bit less, and you create this thing in the back. As the singer is not getting buried by, those back vocals, so it's, and then you've got this really nice, when you're listening to it in your head, you just go like, okay, the singer is there, his back vocalists are here. It's like creating this sort of 3D world, I guess. So yeah. Yes.
If I have a question,
Yes. Hi. Hi, Sudeep. How are you?
good, how are you? Thank you very much for the session. It was very helpful.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, guys, for being here. If I didn't say it already.
I have a question on gain staging. I've realized that when I use the Fab Filter, I have a Fab Filter Equalizer plugin, and I'm trying to work with that plugin, especially when gain staging. Although I keep the drums volume low, or for that matter, like the kick volume low, sometimes the Fab Filter itself, the gain staging, even though if you keep it like minus 12 dB, it still shows as red as the output of that Fab Filter Equalizer. So I'm trying to like look into it and see if that's something that you know
Let me see if I understand it real quick. I'm just gonna reshare.
maybe it's a specific problem to mine.
So let's say an instrument that's already gain staged. Okay, for example. Okay. Um, okay.
Add the Fab Filter, yeah, the yes.
So
Then,
I don't have the new one, but let's say like,
oh, I see. Got it. The posting here.
but let's say like I'm on the analyzer here. Let's just say
Yeah, so not many times I see red on the right because it has a gain staging in itself, like it shows an output of the volume. So yeah, right there. So it's usually when every time you even though keep your gain staging low, sometimes that still shows as red, as it's most of the time shows clip. So I don't know if it's a general fab filter issue or
I
because if it shows clipping then if I'm adding other plugins like especially for drum bus, um, I fear that it's going to clip
I don't know
more.
because I can't see anything here as well. When I play something, there's nothing.
Ah,
There's no I don't know where the metering is for that, so I would know. I guess it would be more of
the Q2, I think it's the newer plugin maybe. Yeah.
it's not so much a problem with gain staging. I think it would be more related to the actual plugin. So maybe you could do some research on that. But it would seem odd because yeah, basically when we're doing this gain staging is to make sure we get this yeah, the healthy the healthiest signal, to work with. So yeah.
No, thank you.
So
I'll take a look at that. Yeah. But typically, do you in order to get more headroom, is it like between -6 to 12 dB on the actual track itself?
I I don't look at that myself. I mean, there's no like I don't have a special place where I trying to send the mastering engineer. I just make sure that they have some headrooms, but really I wouldn't know what to say about that because then I think it becomes a little bit, how can I say, a little counterproductive when there's so many rules like that, sometimes, and then you're like trying to work with your mix, and then you're looking at your master all the time, and like, well, I can't go more than that, and then you're like, well, I need to raise the clap, and then what do you do, So I wouldn't know what to say. I don't think I am. I'm so much by the book, on a lot of these things. So
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
sorry. Okay, thanks. All right. Anyone else has a question?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
oh.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I already asked one. Go ahead.
Hi. Oh, hi, Fred. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. I can't see you on there though.
I'm Jim. Hi, Jim Elmore from
Jim.
London.
Okay, I see you. Okay, I see you there.
Yeah,
Right.
how you doing? Yeah, one area that I struggle with is vocals and putting the right level of effects on vocals in terms of reverb, and then also mixing in, like a backing or ad libs with the main vocal. I did really like your most recent track with Robert Owens and the way that the vocals were layered in there. So is that something? Appreciate this track you're doing now doesn't have a vocal in, but is there an old track maybe you could open up and just show us how you've worked that? Because I know you've done a lot of vocal tracks over the years.
I could. Yeah, I could do that tomorrow. I could bring up the Robert Owens session. Although I did, in this case, yeah, I can show some stuff. It's just there's no backing vocals really, in his, like, he did some harmonies, but I didn't end up
Harmonies, yeah.
but so I not it's a full on vocal, just one take. Yeah, in fact, it was pretty much one take what he did, and so what I do, what I really like to work with vocals, what I'll do often is take things from the main take and then put it on a separate track and then effect that. So
Right.
in that track you got that sort of thing in the background, that I'll take you in, anyways, but like echo. Well, I could have done with automation, but I think it's nice to then take parts of your track, put it on a separate track, and treat it like a little crazy, like however you want it. You can like EQ, make it sounding more tinny, and then add a reverb and a delay, and whatever you want. And now you're not thinking also about that automation all the time, and you can really create some nice things. If you want to also if you want to thicken a vocal, what I like to do is take that vocal on another track and use something like Little Altar Boy by Soundtoys, or basically like pitch it down, an octave. And sometimes what I will do if I'm doing a remix, someone there's a vocal, and the second part of the vocal is a little similar. The second verse is a little similar than the first one. What I'll do is in the second verse, I'll add that layer of pitch down. So it just creates something, and it's almost like it's not like, I guess if you listen correctly, you will hear it. But if you're just listening to music like that, you won't hear it, but it makes it a little bit, I won't say less boring, but like more interesting. I don't know.
Enhances it, yeah.
Yeah, there's something. I mean, vocals. Yeah, so much it can be done with, and it's so nice. It's so fun to work with vocals. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks. Cheers.
May I jump in here with a question?
Yeah, who's this? Sorry.
Hi, I'm Jason Williams.
Gee, how come I don't see you?
Oh
yes, of course. Okay, sorry. You're right there. You're next to the other person on my window.
I have a question about using flangers, and I'm having trouble creating like the timing for whether it's a 16 bar or 16 count or 32 count flanger that rises or falls at the right time. I'm having trouble figuring out how to use that in my plugins. And I use Ableton. It's like, that like a kind of classic San Francisco sound where a vocal will flange up and down through the phrase.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Do you have a track in mind?
Uh,
It's okay. You can tell me tomorrow or something. But mostly like your plugins. A lot of time now, you know, they're syncable to the tempo, right?
yeah, and I feel like the rate using the rate button will create it longer
Let me
or
just
shorter.
open up real quick.
But I'm never getting the most out of it, and I can't seem to figure out how to.
Just trying to see if I can see what it looks like online. The flanger. Yes, you've got that LFO thing. You've got the shape thing that you can, you know, adjust, and it's syncable to the note. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's basically your LFO that's gonna dictate your flanger. So I if you have a track in mind, you know, tell me tomorrow and I might be able
Okay.
to tell you what I think. But it's strange. I never actually noticed, you know, that sort of effect on vocals. So
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
cool. Sorry, I couldn't help with this. All right. So who else
I
is
had
there?
a question regarding like reverbs on your percussion.
That's Jason.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Go on.
like on your percussion tracks, not the kick, obviously, but on your other tracks, will you kind of individually set reverbs on some, or will you set like a drum bus with like a room reverb and send all of them to it, or is it more of an individual basis on certain elements?
It depends. I think if you have group stuff, like let's say you have a bunch of congas and bongos, I don't know, or just like wooden percussions, and you know you want to treat it maybe together. That's nice. Like again, it's sort of like the thinking like how people used to make records in a room, right? So if you think that in a way like I mean our ears are used to these recordings, so that's what we're trying to sort of recreate. But if you're thinking that this person would have played all these percussion in that particular room, then you know it makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then like if usually like you know I'll use like reverbs on claps, and they'll be different. They'll just be just for that one. So I think the short answer would be yeah. If you feel like it's kind of like a group thing, then it's nice. But there's no real rules. Also, it's about your CPU. If you don't have a big CPU and you want to use a CPU hungry reverb, then you use it there, and you know. But yeah, you can experiment with all these things as well. And if you have all these percussions again, and you know using the pre-delay like I mentioned before, you know, to sort of you could use the same reverb but on different sound and play with the pre-delays on things and the panning, and then you would sort of, you know, you could get something very interesting too. But having said that, with dance music again, you know, it's like it's nice. All of that is really nice, but sometimes it can be distracting from really what, you know, what the core of the music is. Going back to Kenny Dope and his, you know, is mono rhythm track. You know, I think there's a lot to say about that. So it's like understanding the things you can do, but not feeling forced to use the things because you have them. Because that's a big problem. We have too many options, and often we feel forced, you know, to want to use them. Like people who are just starting and talking about mid-side, and they need to work with. I don't work with mid-side. I mean, very rarely. Like I think there's one plugin that I use sometimes, but it's like mid-side is not gonna make make your track. Compressor is not gonna make your track. Like basically, you know, that's yeah. I went off the tangent a little bit. Cool. Who else has got a question?
Yeah, it was from me. Sorry, I was just going to jump in and say this on here. Hi, Fred.
Hello.
It's Jeff here. I've just got a question around side. You've been talking about side chaining on kicking the bass,
Yeah.
and I've been using Ableton, and there's two options here. You can sidechain the kick to the bass or the bass to the kick, and I can't really understand if there's any difference. I hear any difference, and I just wondered if there was a rule of thumb where you should be doing the bass to the kick or vice versa.
Well, I mean, you know, the dance music is definitely kick driven, right? So that's your leader. So that's the one who should sort of dictate, right? So if you're trying to, you know, it's like it's your basement. Your basement has to be solid and always be there. And you know, so if you, I mean, I'm sure that there would be some exceptions, but technically the kick would be the leader, so you'd be the one that would duck the bass. But as I mentioned before, is that doing it with a multi-band compressor, for me it's much more interesting because you don't hear it. I know it sounds silly. People say, oh well, if you don't hear it, what's the point? Well, because you know, you are fixing a problem without hearing it. Like I hear people who use sidechain compression on bass sometimes, and they just overdo it, and then you listen to the bass on its own, and it's terrible. It's kind of clicky, and it's become very thinny, and you know, there's a lot more to a bass sound than just, you know, the lower frequency, and that's lower frequencies maybe when you want to control a little bit, but then the rest, you know, you still want to hear it, you know. So that's why I would experiment more with the multi-band in that case.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers. It's funny. I was just going through the chat. My thoughts. I don't have the G-Bus compressor. I have the other SSL by Waves, the bus compressor for mastered, which I think is great on on the master bus. I'm sort of an advocate of using, you know, things in small increments. So can use like different plugins, but you do a little bit, you know, it's sort of like how mastering engineers do it. I've been in sessions where like basically you've got he's hitting the compressor, you can barely see like the needle like moving, seriously. And so so what it does is that you do a little bit everywhere, and then at the end you don't have like a plugin like just doing the heavy lifting on its own, and that's when you hear compression, and that's when things get, you know, a little bit annoying sounding for me anyways, you know, is that it kind of destroy the sound where like you want the plugin to come in at the end, like same thing like if you add just a limiter at the end of your track, you're asking the limiter to raise everything, the volume, where like if you have like little things before that, then the limiter is just going to control the peaks that are left at the end. So in that case, anyways, I went off tangent again, but so I don't know the SSL bus, sorry, but you know, everything is good. You know, all the tools we have are good tools. It's about preferences, and it's about changing things as well sometimes, you know, like not always sticking with the same thing, and then just trying things and like, oh, you know what, at the moment I like this more. Like right now I'm using compression on my drum bus. Maybe in 6 months I won't be using any compression. I saw King Britt did the thing in he's teaching in San Diego University, and he had Mad Professor doing a master class, and that was really interesting. If people don't know Matt Professor, no, I'm not Matt Professor, sorry, scientist, another dub master, not Matt Professor. Anyways, and they were asking him about compression, and he was like, I don't use compression, and it's like someone that's been making music since the 70s, and so I think it's very interesting how you can get to the same result so many ways. It's just about finding your own way and what you like, and being able to change and adapt, but not using things automatically because you've been told to do so basically. Oh, we've got someone who came in late.
I have a question.
Yeah, it's recorded, Eric. I think maybe the last session was, maybe the last class that I did was at 3 p.m.
On the last one, it did it too. Like I got an email that said noon, like 12 Pacific time, and then you go to the site and it said 3 Pacific time, 6. It said 3 and 6 and 12 and 3. And I actually emailed at noon. I was like, is this going on now or is this going on at 3? So I ended up just peacing out. I went on a walk and stuff, which was good. I'll catch the recording though. So
okay, well you can come in tomorrow, and if there's an issue, just make sure.
Is it noon tomorrow?
Yeah, it's the same.
Okay.
Same thing, but I'm trying to see if I look online now, it says no, but you know where it's confusing? Maybe it says 12 p.m., 12 PST, 3 p.m. EST. Maybe that's where the confusion was.
I saw one here. I saw one somewhere that said 3 and 6, because the one in the email also said 12 and 3. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like this one says 12 and 3. I goofed up. I read it wrong somewhere.
It's it's this thing, yeah. So, but yeah, it's a honest mistake, of course. So yeah. And does anyone have any other questions? And if you have as well,
I have a question.
Yes.
So I think someone asked this in the very beginning of the session. I wasn't sure if it was answered. I had to use the restroom in the middle of the session. Do you use your studio speakers to determine the final sound, or do you like go to your car and like hear it there?
No, I don't. I don't listen in my car. I know a lot of people do, and I probably should, because it's apparently a great, or like kind of a make or break for people to say you kind of have a decent acoustic in the car. No, I listen. I have got 3 pairs of speakers here. Really, and I'm using my Neumanns a lot for writing and mixing, and the Auratones. Then I have a pair of Dynaudios that I've had for such a long time that sometimes I like to listen to on. And more and more I've been trusting these Phonon headphones, and I'm trying to get used to that a little bit more. Yeah, so no, I don't use the car. But the problem is that no room is perfect, and even if you made a perfect sounding room, no one is going to listen to music in a perfect room. So it's about knowing your environment, knowing your room, and I think that's the way you get like the best results, really.
You don't use a subwoofer at all?
No, I did once, and then it's really hard because you have to tune it very well. Otherwise, you will always have the impression that there's bass in your music, and there might not be. So I've sent stuff to a friend after I mix it, and he was like, "Oh, that's great! It sounds great." It's like there's no bass, and then I was like, I start freaking out. So I put it for sale, and my previous speakers, and I bought the Neumanns. I sort of got upset. So yeah, no, but some people do. Jimster uses a sub, and his stuff sounds great. And he's always got nice bass, but he knows his room again. His room is not treated, but he knows his room. So yeah. What's the best way to remove background noise from old vocal recordings? EQ? I don't know. I guess there's a lot of plugins out there. There's a lot of suites, that remove things and deal with different problems. But I don't really know them. So you have to check. I think is it iZotope or I don't know. Sorry, I was answering. Oh yeah, there you go. iZotope RX. Someone is saying. Yeah. So. But also, noise is good, huh, guys? Sometimes we could talk about that tomorrow. But adding noise, like in the track, there's a full bird sound track, and adding a tape sound or anything can make your recording sound alive as well. And your favorite records probably have a ton of mistakes and a ton of noise in them. It helps sort of glue things together as well sometimes. So I wouldn't necessarily want to clean everything, perfectly. I know this is not what I'm showing in the class, but you clean some things and then you leave some things as well. And it depends as well what kind of music you want to, the sound that you want to make. Because sometimes it's just what you need. It's more noise. So okay, I think I'm gonna just take that last question here about how would I go about layering kicks when you think that's needed. I have a hard time with this. I don't like it too much. When is it needed? That's your question. If it's needed or not. Like if you're listening to your kick, if it's missing some low end, then you might need some low end. Or if you need something a bit more in the highs, then you find another sound that complements that. But I like to use things like the R bass, for example, the waves, just to add that sort of frequency instead of EQ. It sort of does the same thing. The problem is when you're layering kicks, you can, I don't know, for me, I always had some sort of issue like phasing and things, like almost like it was never like fully right. In Logic, sometimes I use a drum replacer, the one that comes, it's not even a plugin, it comes with Logic. And it's pretty nice because the first kick that it gives you to replace, like the first sound, is something I use sometimes. It's kind of a lower 808-ish kick, and somehow with Logic it seems like that it gives you a track under it, and it's like it's very accurately right. So in this case, I would use either something like that or like the R bass, for example. So. All right, unless there's like a quick last one, I'd say we will see each other tomorrow. Happy to answer. There's definitely Q&A, but if you have things specifically that you want to talk about tomorrow, happy to talk about that at the beginning of the session. And tomorrow as well, I have a bit more time as well if you want to go over. I have a DJ stream tonight as every Saturday, so if you guys are bored at home, from 7 to 9, so in less than 2 hours, doing a thing at twitch.tv/Fred Everything, and I'm gonna play disco tonight, so no house music, just like old stuff for a Christmas party. So thanks everyone for being there. Jesus, I'm gonna have a quick chat right when everyone's gone. Okay, cool. Yes, thank you guys. See you tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.